I'd like to welcome each of you to the Road to Equal Justice workshop series. It's such a pleasure to be able to join you this morning. You may know me as an outspoken activist and as a co-founder of Black Lives Matter. But one of the earlier roles that I played was initiating the creation of our website and social media platforms in order to coordinate our efforts and amplify our voices. And even prior to creating BLM, I was invested in the advancement of technology as a tool for social justice and the greater good. On May 28th, just 3 days after George Floyd's death, close to 8.8 million tweets were sent out featuring the hashtag Black Lives Matter. From that day until June 7th, the hashtag was used at least 2 million times per day, marking the most active time period for the hashtag since we created it back in 2013. A record number of protests and marches across the United States and around the globe this year has shown the importance of speaking up and taking action for racial justice and against state-sanctioned violence. We are also witnessing the power of media, data, and technology to amplify and scale our efforts. And this is why I personally believe in the significance of PeaceTech. Tools like social media and messaging apps have enabled us to organize and communicate. Other tools such as online surveys and fundraising apps have helped us harness the goodwill and conscience. We've been able to mobilize millions and build really diverse coalitions. Income and housing data down to the community level has helped tell our story and measure the impact of our work as well as our concerns. Today, it's more important than ever to understand that the tools and data that exist to implement and scale our work on racial justice. Now, this is where the Road to Equal Justice begins, a series of workshops that PeaceTech Lab has put together with local communities across the United States to provide media, data, and technology training to organizations working on racial justice. I hope you enjoyed this workshop series and that you leave these sessions better equipped, inspired, and more committed to justice.
Wow. Thank you, Opal. Thank you. It is such an honor to have one of the amazing co-founders of Black Lives Matters with us today to kick off the Road to Equal Justice. Morning, everybody. My name is Sheldon Himelfarb. I'm the founding CEO of PeaceTech Lab. We're a nonprofit from down the road in Washington, D.C., and we've been focused on peace building and social justice around the world using media, tech, and data for several years now. I'm speaking to you from my home in Southern Maryland, but I was actually born and raised and will always be a Baltimorean. I went to college in the city. So did my daughter, who also went to med school on West Baltimore Street at University of Maryland. Every time I came to visit her, we'd have lunch, grab a sandwich at Lexington Market. And I'm still in Baltimore all the time to see my mom, who is 92. So my connection to the city is as strong as ever. And I can't tell you how happy I am to have this chance to be working together with you. So how, you may ask, does a Baltimore boy come to create something called the PeaceTech Lab? I'm not going to bore you with the whole long journey, but I'll tell you how we began. And it really started some 25 years ago in the country of Rwanda in Central Africa, where I was working shortly after that genocide you may have heard of that occurred in 1984. During that nightmare, radio was the technology of choice, and radio was used to incite the mass killing of 800,000 people in 100 days, mostly Tutsis who were killed by Hutus. And in the wake of that horror, I was fortunate to work with some very courageous men and women at a new radio station that we set up to give people in the region access to reliable information, as well as to give them hope. And most of them working in our station knew someone who had been killed in the genocide. And I will never forget asking one of them, a Tutsi journalist, I'll never forget asking this man who had buried his brother how he felt working with Hutus. And he told me that it was the only way to get peace. He said he would do anything to bring peace to his community and to his country. And he said he just wanted our help to do it. He just needed some help. I left there committed to figuring out ways to do just that, committed to putting the right tools into the hands of people like him who were dedicated to peace building and social change. And I've been doing it ever since with the help of a great team at the lab who you will get to know across the next 3 weeks. So that's how it started. Now, fast forward about 25 years, and here we are, 2020, a very, very painful year in the US. COVID-19 has crippled the country. It's illuminated the injustices of our healthcare system as we've witnessed African Americans dying from the virus at twice the national average. We watched as the deaths of Ahmaud Arbery in February, Breonna Taylor in March, and George Floyd in May sparked protests and outrage and ignited calls for racial justice, not just here, but around the globe. And as an organization that cares deeply about equity and using technology as a force for social good, we at the PeaceTech Lab truly feel the weight of responsibility to help answer these calls for justice as best we can. Over the years, we have been able to provide more than 1,400 peace builders in 25 countries with tools and training so that they could better tackle their most pressing local challenges. And now it's time we bring our lessons home and take part in the collective mission that you all are engaged in to create social change here. And that's why we're launching the Road to Equal Justice in Baltimore today. And Baltimore will be the first in a line of US cities, including Minneapolis, Portland, and Louisville, where we're going to offer this virtual training. Hopefully we'll get to start doing them in person later next year. Training on using tech, media, and data, as you heard from Opal, to advance issues of social justice. And in each city, our goal is to connect local organizations that are focused on economic justice, criminal justice reform, fair housing, education, racial equity, voting rights, and more, and empower them with training and resources to amplify their messages and scale their operations so they can do more, better, faster of the great work they're already doing. That's what we call putting the right tools into the right hands to build peace through justice. So let me tee up what you can expect over the next 3 weeks. Somebody want to pull up the schedule slide? Great, thank you. Thanks, Tim. Today, as you can see from that first bullet, we're going to be discussing some of the key issues facing Baltimore with the people who know these best, you. And then we've got Davon Love from Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle, and I cannot tell you how honored I am that we are working with Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle here. We'll have Davon Love joining us shortly to get us all involved in this session called When Baltimore Awakens. Later this morning, we'll look at media, tech, and data platforms that are moving the fight for racial justice forward and what the data is saying about Baltimore. Next Friday, the 23rd there, is going to include hands-on training on media campaigns, digital surveys, data analysis, visualization, social media mapping, and digital security tools. It's a lot, but fortunately, we've got one of these training sessions being led by Melvin Cedino from Baltimore's own Smart Logic. He'll help us understand how to effectively use messaging apps to organize and communicate. And then finally, on Friday, April 30th, and you'll want to pay attention to this, Fearless, the technology company from downtown Baltimore, is going to lead the discussion on the best ways to incorporate new tools into your organization. And then the lab, PeaceTech Lab, will award grants. Hope you heard that, folks. We will be awarding grants for innovative projects. We'll also provide software licenses and get everyone engaged on networking platforms so we can all stay connected beyond our sessions together. So let me just stop there by thanking all of you for attending today, as well as the future sessions. And thank you even more so for the tireless work that you are already doing on behalf of the city and the people of Baltimore, of which I feel a part. Now, I am super excited to welcome today's keynote speaker, DeRay McKesson. DeRay is a civil rights activist who was also born and raised in Baltimore, I was pleased to hear. DeRay, I might say that maybe you and I played sports against each other in high school, except you weren't born when I was in high school. So I don't think that happened. But DeRay was outraged by the death of Mike Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, and was a force in those protests as well as in many more since. And DeRay has just become a key voice in the work to confront the systems and structures that have led to mass incarceration and police killings of Black and other minority populations. We in the lab got to know him first as the host of the award-winning weekly podcast, Pod Save the People, which I love because it creates space for conversation about the most important issues of the week related to justice, related to equity and identity. He's a board member of Rock the Vote. He's been named one of the world's greatest leaders by Fortune magazine and one of the 30 most influential people on the internet by Time magazine. And I cannot be more honored to introduce to you DeRay McKesson. Ladies and gentlemen, DeRay.